Won't you turn your Bible to the book of Ephesians, Ephesians chapter 3, and really looking primarily at one verse here, because it's really a lonely verse in a way. It falls between where we finished last time at the end of chapter 2. But did you know that Paul is what you almost have to consider a rather creative modernist sometimes in his writing? You know, like experimental almost. Paul in his writings, for instance, has sentences that go on for 3/4 of a page sometimes. I'm talking both top and bottom pages. They are sort of freely done, I would almost say, and one of the most brilliant men of his age. For instance, the verse we're looking at, Ephesians 3:1, sort of refers to all the verses before in Ephesians, but really it has more to do with verse 13. And so when he stops talking in verse 1, he's really going to skip to verse 13, but in between is all sorts of things where he almost seems to lose control. I mean, he gets away from the initial point, and we'll look at that, Lord willing, in weeks to come. The verse we're looking at is just verse 1 of chapter 3. And for this cause, I, Paul, the prisoner of Jesus Christ, for you Gentiles, and then there's a dash. A dash, I even preached a whole sermon a few years ago here called The Dash. And remember, we defined a dash as that line on the tombstone between the birth date and the death date, and that was the occasion of some serious self-reflection as we think about our lives. Maybe that was a New Year's sermon or something like that, the dash. But looking at the verse 1, our friend Paul, who was not unlike us in many ways, he is glorying in something that probably we have a hard time understanding. He's in prison. Now, I can think of only one thing that might be enamoring about a prison. I think if I lived in a climate that was horrendously hot, and there was any chance for cooler temperatures in the cell blocks of a prison, I might be tempted for a few hours, you know. I mean, I love this weather here, but when it gets into the 80s, Pastor Rose disappears in front of air conditioning and etc. Now, I don't think there was anything redeeming in that day about prisons, and hardly anything today, but he finds himself for the upteenth time, as some would say, incarcerated in prison, and he is becoming known for it. He's becoming known for it. And when you think about it in the scriptures, it's quite interesting to think of how many people are noted as being incarcerated or in prison. We'll notice a few in a few minutes. But Paul, during his experience, to this point, has been in prison probably for 5 years out of his life. He's probably in his early 60s, where sort of I am, but he has been in prison and he's led quite an unusual life, no question. Notice in the verse he's not negative about it. He is glorying in it in a way, because he's in prison for a reason. He has accomplished something for God, and the enemy didn't appreciate that, and in part that is why he has been taken out of society and left to suffer, if you will, as he is in prison. Let me pray as we go for the rest of our sermon. Let's trust God. Our Father, we pray for your blessing. We have prepared, and others have prayed also, and we pray, Lord, that by your power now, this sermon, this message will have fruit to your glory. Our Father, we pray that we might learn and be challenging from this verse, and we do pray this all, of course, in Jesus' name. Amen. I've had, believe it or not, without being incarcerated myself, quite a bit to do with prisons over the years. On your behalf, I've ended up visiting a prisoner or two over the years. Ellis Island is the immigrants. Rikers Island are the prisoners. I've been there a number of times over the years. It's useful to go, but you pray that you never have to go as a prisoner. I was, as a young man, when I went to Bible school, my school insisted that we have experiences working in the prisons. So I did, and I remember I had a gospel rescue mission opportunities, an orphanage ministry, street ministries. I can still remember some ministry in Chicago in the prisons. When I was teaching school many years ago, before I met my wife, before I married and we came back to New York, district, I taught 6th grade, and the school tried to provide an hour or a space in the last period of every school day for teachers to specialize in something of their own interest and interest of the kids. I picked careers. I had a driver's license for a big bus. I took every couple of weeks a different group of kids, and we all clambered into the bus, and I drove off to a power plant. And we got a tour of the power plant. Then we went off to the hospital, the local hospital. This is a town called Pearsall, Texas. They thought of themselves as the watermelon capital of the world. They said they had about 95% Mexican-American population. And I believed it. Beautiful children, and quite an experience living there before I met Diane and we married. And one of the places we visited was always the county jail. I sort of pushed this a little bit because I wanted my kids always to have a little bit of experience, say walking into a cell that would have been provided for a teenager who would be arrested. I wanted to see a place where someone who had been inebriated, who had been arrested, drinking, let's say, and had broken some laws where they would have been locked up, and to see what it's like. Not nice, a little county office, jail office. And so that when they, maybe even years later, reflect on seeing some of these kind of things, especially at the jail, they think twice about, experiencing, doing things that would get them in trouble with the law. It's amazing for me to think about this, but I did this almost 30 years ago. So those kids are now in their early 40s, which makes me feel so very aged here suddenly. But I think about jail. Jail has always been something that I have had great distaste for. I remember a couple old Hollywood movies that impressed me very negatively about jails. I can't remember the title other than one called Caged that impressed me very horribly. And my impressions are not good. Probably justifiably so, amen? But justifiably so. Paul is in such a place, probably worse in many ways than our own current system. I know today that if I was to be guilty of a capital crime, your pastor, by the way, does not have the normal view about capital punishment in the Bible. I'm frankly slow about capital punishment by way of taking a life. I'm for it only because really the Bible seems to indicate that. But I think the most horrible thing today, if you committed such a crime, would be to have to live forever in prison. I think it would almost be a mercy. Anybody agree with me? Almost be a mercy so I didn't have to live in a jail situation. Can you imagine the rest of one's life? So I have a mixture of different feelings and thoughts and experiences. In our first years of ministry here at the church, I was part of a group that helped at a transitional facility down near LaGuardia Junior College, the junior college down there. Apparently, all the upstate prisons, back then at least, had men about to get out, go to this facility for the final month of their stay in incarceration. So Prison Fellowship and others organized, sent teachers in to go over some sound Bible principles with them in the evenings to get them in shape, hopefully spiritually, for getting back out into the city life. There are opportunities today, by the way. I don't readily have access, but please know we can get help and get encouragement for you to get into some of these facilities, trained and get in and be a blessing. That's what a church should be about too. But this morning I'd like to speak with you about this individual, so unusual. His name was Paul. Now I think about this a little bit. What is our future? What does it include? Does it include prison? I want to submit to you, blurring what prison is, of course, a little bit, and put Paul, yes, he's in prison in this verse, but also look at us so that we see ourselves in situations that are, well, we look askance at them. We would find them difficult, a challenge, and we would wonder, is the hand of God still upon me? I think it's useful to look at Paul because he's quite positive. Even in prison, he seems to have reason to have some joy. And what I come to the conclusion is, That's not something that comes by way of just suddenly deciding the day before being arrested, say, and incarcerated, put in the prison, I'm going to be this way. No. This is the kind of thing that you only live and you only are after many years of God's work in your life. And I want to suggest to you this morning, here's really my bottom line. It may not be a physical prison, but many of us face different things. At the end of the message, we'll list a few, where we are under such pain and torture, or under such askance, or the look of others negatively, that we are dizzy before our God, where we feel weak and we fall. Now, Paul did not fall. I think the reason was that Paul was of a character who grew in character as he became a Christian, that he was built up by his early experiences so that even a harsh prison experience could be something to the glory of God. Will we face like possibilities in our own life? None of us want to go bankrupt, for instance. None of us want to be burdened on society. We want to be independent. We want to live lives where we have earned and attained and are secure. We want the embarrassment and the trouble and the pain of various situations. We want to take care of ourselves and live honorably before all. But what if that is taken away from us, or God deliberately has other plans for us? Can we trust Him and be happy in our situation? Many of us in this room, too many of us are unemployed. Too many of us are lonely. Too many of us are hurt. We have pain. We don't know what the future holds. I suggest this about Paul. Paul was not Superman. Paul didn't know the future any better than we would have had knowledge of the future, being in his place 2,000 years ago if we were there. He had amazing gifts. He was perhaps the most powerful, influential man, certainly in the New Testament, and very, very powerful and unusual in his era throughout the Roman Empire, really. We are not like him really in that way, but in many ways we have some of the same reactions to the same things that he had to react to. How did he get to find these things bearable, acceptable, because God had prepared him for them? And a worry that I have is that many of us face things in our future, our days ahead, and that we're unprepared for them. We're unprepared for them. I did, as I told my Sunday school class, something a little bit unusual this week. My children are all grown, and my youngest is now 26. Jesse turned 26 last week. So when we first came here, he was a year and a half old. And in 2 more months, he'll be married a full year, praise God. But yesterday, no, not yesterday, it was Friday and Thursday, I attended 2 high school, 2 separate schools, and their parent-teacher offerings. Parents are to go, hopefully with a child, a young person, and meet each of the teachers and talk through grades and how things are going. And I tutor here at the church. We just do it for free. If you know children, probably especially boys, but children who need some help, we love to help in that way. It constitutes a lot of our youth work right now. But I went with a mother who speaks almost no English and who spoke Spanish, but who didn't know a lot of what was going to go on. So I accompanied them, went teacher to teacher. I heard again and again what you might have expected, along the lines of, he's such a golden boy, such a sweet character. I like your son a lot, Nothing huge of substance that was really going to help hugely in most cases. Just a lot of polite niceties, really. And of course, that's okay if you're not looking for further. But how I longed in that experience to hear a few more examples of this. My good boy, he's improved so much, and let me show you how he's improved. This is what his work was. Look at it now. I wish I had seen more of that. I wish I had seen more. You need to see the proof. You need to see it. And you need to pursue, and you need to encourage. And that's what I did Thursday night, and almost all of Friday afternoon. And I just came away thinking, this is not unlike what it is being an adult today in Christ. We often accept platitudes and we presume we're doing well, but many of us have not grown hugely in the Lord. And there is need for us to grow and be stable, not unstable, but advancing in the things of God, because hard times are coming. Pastor Rose does not expect, personally, that life is going to get smoothly easier as I get in my 60s now, in my 70s, should the Lord tarry, should the plan include those years. Things are going to be a challenge. Worthwhile, yes. But am I prepared? Am I ready for those things? And this is more than just a bank account kind of an issue. Do I have the character in Christ to bear what the Apostle Paul was bearing? When I think about it, he was probably almost exactly my age. We approximate his age. We don't know for sure. We don't even know for sure how old Jesus was. But it probably was that they were both born about the same time. So that at the time of our Savior's dying on the cross, at perhaps maybe 32 or 33 years of age, Paul was an active Pharisee of the Jews also at around 30, 32 years of age, 32, 33. It was to be years yet before he was converted, where he was changed by the Holy Spirit. What characterized Paul was an energy. I've often thought of him being as a super entrepreneur spirit. A man who just had vision and ambition, and his vision and ambition was for Judaism. And he was involved with, apparently, the incarceration. Think about how things that go around come around. He was no doubt involved in the incarceration of believers, true believers in Christ. And even, apparently, we see the story of Stephen, who was at least involved in the death of Christians. He did so with all of his heart. And when you think about it, after his conversion, did he do much of anything that we can tell of that he did not do with all of his heart? Aren't we going to be, by the way, a little ashamed of ourselves at the end of our time if we have not done all that we can do with all of our heart? Time is important. The opportunities are important. The window may not always be present. Jesus spoke of one of his disciples who, yes, would live some years and be weakened in health at the latter part, not productive, and be led around by others and fed by others. Maybe we, in our own current system, our own society, will live to such an age. Myself, I'm not sure that age is the important thing. Health, productivity, blessing, others, those are important things. Longevity is not the most important thing in the world. Paul was not to have that because by around the age of 65, he had been finally re-incarcerated, and as we suggested during the hymn singing this morning, he died, as best we can tell, beheaded for the sake of the gospel. What strikes me is that he was prepared by God and the experiences he had with God for the utmost in stress and trial of later events of his life, and we need that too. We need to advance and grow and even excel in the Christian life. I know that maybe some of you are listening closely to me this morning, and you're saying to yourself, you're with somebody, maybe your mate, and you're thinking, that person has no idea that I might be responding a little bit to some of these thoughts. Maybe you have been thinking about how your life has been somewhat frustrating in the gospel, and that you have not grown, that you've not advanced, and that you know in your heart that you're really truly still a babe in Christ. I want to say to you that it's not too late. By the way, did you know that 33 in the time of Jesus was quite a substantial age? Technically, and I know numbers lie, statistics deceive, but technically, the mortality death rate was age 29 in the Roman Empire. That's because so many women died in childbirth, so many babies died at birth before the age of 5, and there was such rampant disease and warfare. Now today, and that was announced just earlier this week or late last week, the average age of American people is advancing. I think we have reached approximately 75 to 8 years of age, the average mortality rate. Women get into the 80s. Men are like 77, 78, or must be lower, the average head out. We have a certain window. Will we grow? Will we mature. And Paul did, and made such a difference in his life, that even when he was again in prison, think of the reputation he had, the reputation that might be spread by his enemies, in prison, out of prison, in prison, out of prison. Whole years of his life. What frustration this active, ambitious man must have had to be locked up and kept out of society generally. How would we fare? And how will we fare as we're hit at the serious weak points in our own experience? Where will we find the strength to go on? Well, this morning, I'd like for us to consider first the case of Paul, and then the stories of some other believers quickly. And in preaching this morning, I found out that there won't be much time for that. And then finally, what our own severe trials might include and how we need to be prepared for them. Again, not too much time. I want to stress with you this morning that we're all going through it. You know, every one of us has powerful stress on our lives right now. We feel it by various directions. Things seem to be hitting us. Many years ago, I took some Boy Scouts down to Corpus Christi to the bay. I remember we enjoyed seeing the oil platforms off in the distance in the dark. We had gotten there after dark. We set up tents. We might have been allowed a fire. I can't remember. It's been 35 years. We set them up and we were looking forward to a good night when suddenly we were hit with just